Was it just me, or when the doors to the time loom area were opening up, did anyone else think, ba-da-na-na-na-na, ba-da-na-na-na-na? Like, I literally thought they were walking into Cerebro with that X in the door. Hello everybody and welcome to my review of the season premiere of Loki Season 2, this episode titled Oroboros, which is kind of weird because I'm doing a bunch of videos on the hero's journey type of storytelling for a few videos on my main channel. So I've been thinking about the Oroboros for a long time now. And I'm like, I saw that title, I'm like, oh god, I can never escape. It's a snake eating its own tail, oh my god. But thankfully this didn't seem to be exactly sort of dealing with that concept, though maybe hinting at it coming down later on in the episode. But anyways, regardless, I am very excited to talk about Loki Season 2, though it is a tempered excitement. You know, when Loki Season 1 came out, it was honestly one of my favorite projects that Marvel had done, and it had just come off of WandaVision, which hadn't stuck the landing, but was an overall, like, really great season that had me really high on where Marvel was going. And since then, yeah, I'm a little less excited about where Marvel's going now. Like, there have been a couple odd things here and there that I've liked, even going against the grain for some, like, I'm the weirdo that likes the Eternals. I know. But there's not really been something that I've loved in a very long time. I would even say the last thing I loved was Loki Season 1. Oh, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I should say that. I love that as well. That almost doesn't feel like a Marvel thing. More just like a James Gunn joint. But even on top of that sort of like more tempered feeling around Marvel as a whole, even coming into the season, I have a few like mixed feelings, mostly because, you know, I have had criticisms of Season 1 of Loki, again, as someone who liked the season quite a lot, when it came to representation of queerness. Specifically in the fact that, you know, they mentioned that Loki was bisexual, but didn't really actually do anything to showcase that on screen. It felt very tokenistic and very much like, oh, we'll represent him like briefly in a line, but we won't actually like show him living as a queer person, being very surface level representation. And then they hinted that he was sort of like gender fluid. They sort of said that in some, you know, marketing stuff for the material. And then they have Sylvie, who's not explicitly trans, but then they have this self-says sort of thing, which didn't bother me as much as other people, but it's just sort of like, you could have done a lot more with that. And I really feel like, I don't have any proof of this, but I really felt like Kate Herod, who was the bisexual woman who was sort of in charge of Season 1, was director of every episode and really sort of the leading creative thrust in a lot of ways. It felt like she was really pushing for that stuff and just couldn't really get it through as much as she wanted. Even the little hint of being bisexual for Loki was like a big thing that she was able to accomplish, just going against the Marvel machine and the Disney machine of like being very like surface level with all of their queer representation. And her not coming back to this season apparently just reads wrong to me. Like, maybe it was amicable, maybe she was off to pursue other things, but it still feels a little bit weird to me. Like, maybe there was something more to that story given the frustrations that it felt like she was trying to express in a coded way in some of her statements. I can't prove any of that. That's just me reading into it, but it kind of gave me that vibe a little bit. And it's really weird too, considering the show is like, has a very queer ethos, and Loki himself is a very queer character that many queer people resonate with, both in Marvel and in actual Norse mythology, being the gender fluid badass that Loki was in actual Norse mythology, as I did a whole video on that. And then you also have Mobius right there, who, like, Tom Hiddleston and Loki have such great chemistry together. So it's like, it should all work out, but it just doesn't. Anyways, those are my like sort of fears going into this season. I just want to be honest with them, all of you. I'm sure the people who are just like, yeah, just straight W's have already clicked off as soon as I said the word queer. So all the few that are left are the cool folks. So yeah, those are my like hesitations coming in to this season of the show. But that all being said, now let's get to my spoiler-free stuff, and then I'll get into spoilers in just a second. I actually thought this was a really strong season premiere. A lot of the reviews that I saw going up before this premiere came out were very mixed, and I have to say, this didn't blow me away by any means, but I thought it was very, very strong. I think first and foremost, the chemistry between Loki and Owen Wilson, or Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, I should say, it was just so good. Their back and forth is just pitch perfect. There's some really great excitement and some good building up of like some of the tensions for the season as a whole. We also have Jonathan Majors is still back as, you know, the Kang of it all, which, you know, given all the stuff with him, I'll sort of leave off to the side for now, but obviously it's a frustrating point. But you also have Ki Hu Kwan, who is amazing in this and just nails his performance and interest in this, and I absolutely love that. So like all of the actors across the board are doing great. I'm excited to see where Sylvie's gonna come into this picture, and then the storyline itself had like suitable tension. It was a very considering this episode was called Oroboros, it felt like a very closed loop in terms of the thing that they were doing this season, but there are little hints for more stuff going on. But it really felt like this was just more like a self-contained, like get some cool action stuff going on, while also explaining a lot of the TVA nonsense that's going on that we're going to be probably dealing with for the rest of the season. So yeah, that's my quick review of this. I thought this is a solid season opener that reestablishes a lot of things that I loved, introduces a few new elements, but doesn't really rock the boat all that much in terms of really setting us up for the season-long storyline. So excited to see where that all is going to go. But let's dive into spoilers to talk some specifics. I have to say, first and foremost, the entire joke of like, the two jokes, the one of Loki, like when he goes back, it's like, it's not that bad looking, and then Mobius just being like very like freaked out by it and trying to hide it, was a wonderful joke. And then the skin joke, and just every time the skin, like he's gonna lose the skin, wonderful. I thought that was hilarious. I really did like that. Anyways, I did like this setup of Loki slipping through time. It added like a lot of like good tension to the episode. Like every time Loki slipped and we were in a new place, it felt suitably creepy every time, whether it was in the past or the present. You get to see, Kang and statue and everything in the background. And it does set up this interesting mystery of like, we thought that TVA existed beyond time, but that's not actually true. As you sort of get to this episode, there was a past with TVA and their minds have been erased. So it's sort of like saying like, oh, you're special, you're different, but you're actually not. You actually still exist by these rules, and he has to sort of create this artificial lie in order to do that. And so again, that just sort of goes well with this series ethos of fighting systems. Like the whole series of Loki season 1 was about like fighting systems of power and usually supporting like one person at the top, which is why I resonated so much with it. It didn't fall into that typical like great man hero myth in terms of our main character, but was actually tearing down that idea, which is something I think we need more of in a lot of fiction. And how great men sort of set up these systems that just build up their own power while ignoring the many people who help do that, and also hurt many others outside of their systems. So I really liked that depiction here, and I like this building up that like now that they sort of have learned that Kang is not there, we get to see in the present, we have all the judges sort of like having different feelings about it. Like the one judge sort of saying like, I can do whatever I want now, and she decides to stop harming others, when the other person is like doubling down, is like, oh, everything I know is a lie? Well, it must have all still been true. I can't upset my status quo too much, and being played by the Game of Thrones lady sort of very much fits her in terms of the actress just portrays that sort of vibe very well of like the, fuck it, I've been talking about queer themes, the like kind of like white feminism of it all, It's like this idea of like, oh, I know I suffer under this system, but I'm gonna reassert it anyway, so I don't really know what else to do, but I'll say that I'm doing it for others, that sort of idea. And so it was well depicted. I loved all of that. Loki freaking out at everything was really cool. So like all of that stuff I really liked, but I think the highlight of the episode of this was Oroboros. Ki Hu Kwan like nailed this character instantaneously. I loved his sort of like innocence and like just like not bothered by anything. Like the whole like bit where he's just like, oh, it's been 400 years. Yeah, the last time, and just like doesn't seem to be bothered by it. But like Loki and Mobius are like, Mobius is clearly embarrassed by that he hasn't come to see him, and Loki just very much like, yeah, what's it been like fucking with Mobius? Like that was all wonderful. Again, just goes to my reading them as queer, especially when we have this whole setup of like Mobius being willing to like sacrifice himself for Loki, like and lose all of his skin, and them going into the time loom, and then them landing on each other when Loki gets pruned in the present, or in the future, I guess I should say. And gets shot back, and they land on each other. It's like very much feels like they're doing the queer baiting thing that like Falcon and the Winter Soldier was sort of accused of. So that's sort of like something that, I'm just gonna have to deal with, but I read them as queer, so screw it. But yeah, so all of that was really, really great for me. The other stuff with the time loom, I'm sort of curious to see where they're going to go with that. It was like a lot of expositional stuff that I like stuck up with, but it just, you haven't fully explained what the time loom is supposed to like be necessarily. Like it's weaving timelines together, I guess, but why would they have that necessarily? It's just sort of like an interesting idea, but I'm curious to see how they develop it. I'm sure it'll be a big part of the season, hopefully. Yeah, that's pretty much all the major beats. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Like this was like I said, it was very much a closed loop sort of thing where we get like little hints of stuff, but we deal with the main problem of Loki jumping back and forth in time. We get hints of stuff like Sylvie being at the TV in the future. Who was the one that pruned Loki in the future? Was it himself? Was it Sylvie? We didn't really get a good look. So curious about all of that. So there's little hints of that. Sylvie coming back to a branch timeline in a McDonald's for who I'm sure paid for a decent amount of advertisement for that. So yeah, all of that was like really, I think, very solid. So yeah, I like I said, I like this season. There are a couple of notes of the things that sort of like worry me, but it's sort of been not just a worry at Loki specifically, but Marvel as a whole in terms of its representation of different things, its sort of stalled storytelling. But that being said, this stuff here that I do like, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go. So didn't knock my socks off, but was something that I was enjoying being back in, and the new elements that came in, I did really enjoy a lot, specifically Oroboros. So that's my thoughts on Loki Season 2's premiere, but what did you all think? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. I will be back reviewing each and every episode this season. I will say there will probably be a break in my reviews at some point this season because I'm actually going to be going and filming my own movie in just a few short weeks, so be on the lookout for, well, don't be on the lookout because I won't be releasing it within the next few weeks, but I'll be gone for a week filming it. But otherwise, I'll be reviewing week to week, but beyond all that, I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.